Oh yeah, we're back again. Sort of episode 5, I think it is. In the last one, I was just telling you about the build up to the race day with Goodyear and how we would do a bit of mucking about in our spare time. Um, but race day, once again, I mean, if I'm talking to people who absolutely understand how a race weekend works, then you'll probably know. And you know what you've got to realise about how I'm telling this story is that there's a lot of guys who are really intense about the racing. What you got to realise with me is I was never really that bothered with it. I was fortunate to. I actually turned down a job 3 times in Formula One before I actually got involved with it. What most people do is work their way up through junior formulas. They'll start with Formula Ford, Formula 3, they'd go into what was Formula 3000, or they'd do different things like that. I did it the other way. I started in Formula 1 and then worked my way back, worked my way downwards, which we'll find out as we go. But I wasn't. I really wasn't a big fan. For me, it was a job. It was a fabulous job. I mean, I was getting to see places around the world that you know you couldn't buy it, and you couldn't buy the experience. But what you've got to look at from how I'm trying to tell this story is that I actually wasn't that bothered. So you won't hear too many technical things from me. Yeah, I've got a good general knowledge of racing, but I was in it to earn a reasonable living, but I was also in it to enjoy myself, and that was one of the main things. Do the job, but work hard, but play even bloody harder. So anyway, we're back. I'm not going to repeat this sort of tale of a race weekend for every single race I've done. It's just pointless. I'm just trying to give you a little idea, certainly when I was with Goodyear. So we're in France. It's race day. Again, I think we used to get like a half-hour warm-up, which was probably 9:30 or something like that in the morning. So what you'd have then was the teams would be basically running everything in race trim. They'd be running full tanks with the fuel. They'd be running the tyres that they wanted to run in the race. They'd go and put maybe 2 or 3 laps on them, come in, change tyres, and so you'd have a scrub set of tyres to start the race, and also if you got a pit stop, because it was never a good idea to come in for a pit stop and you had to go straight onto brand new tyres, or sticker tyres as they used to be called as well. So they do the half-hour warm-up, and then the teams would have 4 hours between the pit lane opening and going to the grid, ready for the race itself. Now, at Goodyear, what we used to have to do, most of our work was really done up until that point. Now, very often, we had to strip all the tyres off at the end of the day, because no teams, Goodyear wouldn't allow really any teams to take tyres away with them. Most of the cars travelled on little thin travelling wheels, so they could get them in the trucks easier. But Goodyear stripped all the tyres off after every race, and that would be all the slicks, used or unused. That would be the wets, and they all had to come off. So the teams then took all the bare rims away with them, and it was rinse and repeat. Same thing the next race. But the two people that would be designated to strip off the tyres after the race, sometimes you'd start during the race, but very often were possibly the two guys who'd maybe had enough to drink the night before and looked a little bit bleary-eyed, and it was how it was. But if you'd played up or whatever, you were normally the ones volunteered for to be stripping off, and that was hard work. That was bloody hard work, because you would have to strip off, let's say, 400 tyres in the same space of time that you'd taken 2 or 3 days fitting these damn things up. They'd been raced and everything like that. So as soon as the lights went out and the race was on, some of the guys were working through the race, so you'd be stripping tyres off, so you'd got a chance of at least getting away from the circuit at a reasonable time. So yeah, after the race it was bedlam, because all of the teams were wanting, they were coming back. I'll find some pictures actually of the amount of tyres that we got through. It was scary really, and so we'd be stripping off. The wheelmen were all hanging around because they needed to get the wheels back, they needed to put them in the boxes, get them on the truck, and they'd be off to wherever. Don't forget these days as well, I mean, we used to do 16 races a season. Now they do, 20, 22, something like that, but they don't do any testing. Years ago, teams would have the race team and they'd have a dedicated test team as well, and a lot of these guys used to sort of piggyback and go from, if you were one of the lesser teams, and I was certainly with a lot of lesser teams, we were race team and test team, so consequently we had to do all the work. I mean, but with Goodyear again, we were race team and test team. So all the guys had, the trucks would be loaded. With a bit of luck, we might be out of the circuit, say at 7 o'clock, something like that, and we'd drive an hour down the road, see as far as we could get. We'd either be heading home, or we would be off to another race or something. I mean, in this particular instance, after the French Grand Prix, the next race after that was the British Grand Prix, which this in '86 was at Brands Hatch, and that was the week after. So really, we'd got to get back. We'd got to get back up to Wolverhampton. We'd got to turn the trucks round. We'd got to get all of the old scrap tyres off, and we'd got to load up again, and then get down to Silverstone. So that was what happened. Now, a lot of people ask what happened to all the used tyres and that. Well, I can tell you what happened to the Goodyear tyres. There's a housing estate somewhere up in Derbyshire that is built on a big landfill, and those houses, when you walk in them, they must bounce, because those houses are built on tens of thousands of Goodyear F1 tyres. Because we would take them up, or some of the drivers, the truckies, would take them up after a race or after a couple of races, and we'd sling them in this great big hole in Derbyshire. And, they weren't recycling or shredding them or anything like that, but every single tyre had to be disposed of, and throwing them into landfill. I mean, people would, they'd throw their hands in the air now with this type of thing. But yeah, we put them all in this hole, and there are tens of thousands under Derbyshire somewhere. But yeah, that was sort of how a weekend would run. We filled the trucks up, headed off down to the British Grand Prix at Brands Hatch, and we did the same thing again. So in the next episode, I'll just skim over the British Grand Prix. I think the most notable thing about that one was the accident at the beginning, where they all went off. Anyway, Jacques Lafitte, who was driving for Ligier, he had a terrible accident, and at the start of Paddock Hill Bend, right at the start of the race, he went into the barriers and broke both his legs, and that was essentially the end of his career. And it was that sort of thing that made you think, this can be a dangerous game at times.